Chapter 12. Zoe, over here. I almost cried in relief when I heard Damien's voice and saw his hand waving at an empty desk next to him. Hi, I sat down and smiled gratefully at him. Are you ready for your first day? Nope. I nodded. Yep. I wanted to say more, but just then a bell gave 5 quick rings, and as the echo of it died, Neferit swept into the room. She was wearing a long black skirt, slit up the side to show great stiletto boots, and a deep purple silk sweater. Over her left breast, embroidered in silver, was the image of a goddess, with her arms upraised, hands cupped in a crescent moon. Her auburn hair was pulled back into a thick braid, and a series of delicate, weave-like tattoos that framed her face made her look like an ancient warrior priestess. She smiled at us, and I could see that the entire class was caught, as I was, by her powerful presence. Good evening. I've been looking forward to beginning this unit. Delving into the rich sociology of the Amazons is one of my favorites. She gestured at me. It is excellent timing that Zoe Redbird has joined us today. I am Zoe's mentor, so I'll expect my students to welcome her. Damien, would you please get Zoe a textbook? Her cabinet is next to yours. While you explain our locker system to her, I want the rest of you to journal about what preconceived impressions you have of the ancient vampire warriors who were known as the Amazons. The typical paper rustling and student whispering commenced while Damien led me to the back of the classroom, where there were a wall of cabinets. He opened one that had the number 12 in silver on it. The cabinet contained a neat, wide variety of shelves filled with textbooks and supplies. At the House of Night, there aren't lockers like at a regular school. Here, first hour is our homeroom, and we have a cabinet of our own. And the room will always be open, so you come back and get your books whenever, just like you would go to your locker. There's a sociology book. He handed me a thick leather book with a silhouette of a goddess stamped on it along the front, along with the title Vampire Sociology 101. I grabbed a notebook and a couple of pens. When I shut the cabinet door, I hesitated. Isn't there a lock or something? No, Damien lowered his voice. They don't need locks here. If someone steals something, the vamps will know it. I don't even want to think about what would happen to somebody stupid enough to do that. We sat down and I started to write about the only thing I knew about the Amazons, that they were warrior women who didn't have much use for men. But my mind wasn't on my work. Instead, I was wondering why Damien, Stevie Ray, and even Erin and Shawnee all freak out about getting in trouble. I mean, I'm a good kid, okay, not perfect, but still. I've only had detention once so far. That wasn't my fault. Really, some turd boy told me to suck his cock. What was I supposed to do? Cry? Giggle? Pout? No. So instead I bitch slapped him, although I prefer to just use the word smacked, and I got detention for it. Anyway, detention wasn't actually that bad. I got all my homework done and started the new Gossip Girl book. Clearly detention at House of Night entailed more than going to the teacher's classroom for 45 minutes of quiet time after school. I'd have to remember to ask Stevie Ray. First, what pieces of Amazon tradition do we still practice at the House of Night? Nefrit asked, drawing my attention back to class. Damien raised his hand. The bow of respect, with our fist over our heart, comes from the Amazons, and so does the way we shake hands, by gripping forearms. Correct, Damien. Ha, that explained the funny handshake. So, what preconceived notions do you have about Amazon warriors? She asked the class. A blonde who sat at the back of the room said the Amazons were heavily matriarchal, as are all vampire societies. Yeesh, she sounded smart. That's true, Elizabeth, but when people discuss the Amazons, legend tends to add an additional layer to history. What do I mean by that? Well, people, especially humans, think that the Amazons were man-haters, said Damien. Exactly. What we know is that Just because their society is matriarchal, as is ours, it does not automatically mean that it is anti-male. Even Nyx has a consort, the god Eberus, to whom she is devoted. The Amazons were unique, though, in that they were the only society of vampire women who chose to be their own warriors and protectors. As most of you already know, our society today is still matriarchal, but we respect and appreciate the sons of night and consider them our protectors and consorts. Now, open your text to chapter 3 and let's look at the greatest of the Amazon warriors, Penthesilea. But be careful to keep legend and history separate in your mind. And from there, Nefrite launched into one of the coolest lectures I'd ever heard. I had no idea an hour had passed. The ringing bell was a total surprise. I just shoved my sociology book back in my cubby. Okay, I know what Damien and Nefrite called them. It was cabinets. But come on, they totally reminded me of cubbies that we used to have at kindergarten. When Nefrite called my name, I grabbed a notebook and pen and hurried over to her desk. How are you? She smiled warmly. I'm okay. I'm good, I said quickly. She lifted an eyebrow at me. Well, I suppose I'm nervous and confused. Of course you are. It's a lot to take in. I am recording. It's a lot to take in. Sorry, I've lost my place. Oh, difficult. Of course you are. It's a lot to take in, and changing schools is always difficult, let alone changing schools and lives. She glanced over my shoulder. Damien, would you take Zoe to drama class? Sure, said Damien. Zoe, I'll see you at the ritual tonight. Oh, and has Aphrodite issued a formal invitation to you to join the Dark Daughters in the private ceremony afterwards? Yes. I wanted to double check with you and make sure that you feel fine about attending. I would, of course, understand your reticence, but I encourage you to go. I want you to take advantage of every opportunity here, and the Dark Daughters as an exclusive organisation. It's a compliment that they already seem interested in you as a possible pledge. I'm fine with going forward. I forced my voice and smile to be nonchalant. Obviously, she expected me to go, but the last thing I wanted was for Nefrite to be disappointed in me. Plus, no way in hell was I going to be doing something that might make Aphrodite think I was scared of her. Well done, Nefrite said with enthusiasm. She squeezed my arm, and I automatically smiled at her. If you need me, I'll be in my office. It's the same wing as the infirmary. She glanced at my forehead. I see the stitches have almost completely dissolved. That's excellent. Does your head still hurt? My hand automatically found its way to my temple. I could only feel a prickle of a stitch or two today, when there had been at least 10 yesterday. Very, very weird. And even weirder, I hadn't thought about the cut once this morning. Also, I realised I hadn't thought about my mum, or Heath, or even Grandma Redbird. No, I said, suddenly realising Nefrite and Damien were waiting for an answer. No, my head doesn't hurt at all. Good. Well, you two better go before you're going to be late. I know you'll love drama. I think Professor Nolan has just begun working on monologues. I was halfway down the hall, hurrying to keep up with Damien, when it hit me. How does she know I was going to take drama? I just decided it this morning. Adult vamps know way too much sometimes, Damien whispered. Scratch that. Adult vamps know way too much all the time, especially when that vamp is a high priestess. In the light of all I had not been telling Nefrite, I didn't want to think about all that too long. Hey y'all, Stevie Ray rushed up. How was vamp sociology? Did y'all start the Amazons? It was cool. I was glad for a change in subject for the two mysterious vamps. I had no idea they really cut off their right breasts to keep them out of their way. They wouldn't have to if they'd been as flat as me, said Stevie Ray, looking down at her own chest. Or me, sighed Damien dramatically. I was still giggling when they pointed me to the drama room. Professor Nolan didn't ooze power like Nefrite. Instead, she oozed energy. She had an athletic, dark but somewhat pear-shaped body. Her brunette hair was long and straight, and Stevie Ray had been right. She had a serious Texas twang. "Zoe, welcome. Have a seat anywhere." I said hi as I sat behind the Elizabeth girl I recognized from Vampire Sus. Souk. I know how the Americans, shorten that. I don't think we have sociology in high school, or high school anyway. I've lost my place again. Oh my goodness, it's only like 3 chapters. My apologies, it's very unprofessional. Uh, I think it's a smart kid. Never hurts to sit next to a smart kid. We're just about to begin choosing the monologues that each of you will present to class sometime next week. But first, I thought you'd like to have a demonstration of how a monologue should be performed. So I asked one of our talented upper classroom to stop by and recite the famous monologue from Othello, written by an ancient vampire playwright, Shakespeare. Professor Nolan paused and glanced out the window at the door. Here he is now. The door opened, and oh, my dear sweet lord, I do believe my heart totally stopped beating. I'm positive my mouth flopped open like a moron. He was the most gorgeous young lad I had ever seen. He was tall and had dark hair and did an adorably perfect Superman curl thing. His eyes were amazing sapphire blue, and oh, hell, 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 he was the guy from the hall. Come on in, Herrick. As usual, your entrance is perfect. We were ready for your monologue. She turned back to the class. Most of you already know fifth former Eric Knight and are aware that he's won last year's worldwide House of Night monologue competition, the finals of which were held in London. He's already creating a buzz in Hollywood as well, and on Broadway for his last performance last semester as Tony in our production of West Side Story. The class is all yours, Eric, Professor Nolan beamed. As if my body were suddenly on automatic, I clapped with the rest of the class. Smiling and confident, Eric stepped up on the stage that was situated in the centre of the large, airy classroom. "Hi, how are you guys doing?" He spoke directly to me. I mean, directly to me. I could feel my face getting really hot. Monologues seem intimidating, but the key is to get your lines down and then to imagine that you're actually acting with a full cast of actors. Trick yourself into thinking that you're not alone up here, like this. And he began with the monologue from Othello. I don't know much about the play, except that it's one of Shakespeare's tragedies, but Eric's performance was amazing. He was tall, probably at least 6 feet, and as he began to speak, he seemed to get bigger and older and more powerful. His voice deepened, and he took on an accent I couldn't place. His incredible eyes darkened and narrowed into slits, and when he said uh, Desdemona's name, it was like he was praying. It was obvious he loved her, even before he spoke the concluding lines. She loved me for the dangers I had passed, and I loved her that she pitied them. She did pity them. As he said the last 2 lines, I can't even get 2 lines. That's how not for the stage I am. I've been reconnecting. Sorry, it's my stream cutting out. As he said the last 2 lines, his eyes locked with mine, and just like in the hall the day before, it seemed as if there was no one else in the room, no one else in the world. I felt a shiver deep inside, something very much like what I'd felt the 2 times I'd smelt blood since I'd been marked. Only no blood had been spilt in the room. There was only Eric. And then I smiled, then he smiled and touched his lips to his fingers, as though he was sending me a kiss, and bowed. The whole class clapped like crazy, including me. Really, I couldn't help it. "That's how it's done," Professor Nolan said. "So, there are copies of monologues in the red bookshelves at the rear of the class. Each of you take several books and begin looking through them. What you're trying to find is a scene that means something to you, that touches some part of your soul. It'll be circulating, or rather, I'll be circulating, and can answer any questions that you have about individual monologues. Once you've chosen your pieces, I'll go through the steps that you need to take to prepare your own presentation. And with an energetic smile and nod, she motioned for us to start looking through the zillions of monologue books. I felt flushed and short of breath, but I got up with the rest of the class, even though I couldn't help peeking at Eric over my shoulder. He was, unfortunately, leaving the room, but not before he turned and caught me gawking at him. I blushed again. He met my eyes and smiled directly at me again, and he was gone. He's so effing hot, someone whispered in my ear. I turned, and, shockingly, Miss Perfect Student Elizabeth was staring after Eric and fanning herself. Doesn't he have a girlfriend? I blurted like an idiot. Only in my dreams, Elizabeth said. Actually, word has it that he and Aphrodite used to be hooked up, but I've been here for a few months, and it's been over between them at least that long. Here you go. She tossed a couple of monologue books at me. I'm Elizabeth, no last name. My face was a question mark. She sighed. My last name was Titsworth. Can you imagine? When I got here a few weeks ago, my mentor explained that I could change my name to whatever I wanted it to be. I knew I wanted to get rid of the Titsworth part, but in the whole issue of picking a new last name just stressed me out too much. I decided to keep my first name and not hassle with a last name. Elizabeth, no last name. So she shrugged. Well, hi, I said. There are some really odd kids here. Hey, she said as we went back to your desks. Eric was looking at you. He was looking at everyone, I said, even though I could feel my stupid face getting all hot and red again. Yeah, but he was really looking at you, she grinned and added, Oh, I think your coloured-in mark is cool. Thanks. It probably looked weird as hell on my beet red face. Any questions about choosing a monologue, Zoe? Professor Nolan asked, making me jump. No, Professor Nolan. I've done them before in drama at SIHS. Very good. Let me know if I can clarify or uh, any character or setting for you. She patted me on the arm and kept moving around the room. I opened up the first book and started to flip through the pages, trying, unsuccessfully, to forget about Eric and concentrate on monologues. He had been looking at me, but why? He must have known that it had been me in the hall, so what kind of interest in me was he showing? And did I want a guy like that, who'd been getting a blowjob from the hateful Aphrodite? I probably shouldn't. I mean, I definitely wasn't going to take up where she left off. Or maybe he was just curious about my freakishly coloured in mark, like practically everyone else was. But it had seemed like it. It seemed like he'd been looking at me, and I'd liked it. I glanced down at the book I'd been ignoring. The page was open to a subchapter, Dramatic Monologues for Women. The first monologue was a page from uh, Always Ridiculous by Jose oh, Ekagari. I'm sorry, Jose, if that, I'm sure I've butchered that. Well, hell, that was probably a sign. And that's the end of chapter 12. Again, sorry, there's something about marked that doesn't quite. You'll get books that you're reading and it doesn't quite jive with the way you think. Like if you've been listening to any other series, I swear I'm better. It's the way the sentences are structured and they're a wee bit more complex. The words too. Clearly, all this talk about drama and sociology is something one or both of those authors have taken themselves, and so being good at English, how dare they? But big words and properly constructed sentences. What can you do? But thanks for listening. Um, and I'll get this uploaded on Wednesday. I think we'll keep trying with our themes of days. Um, will I do anything for Horror Tuesdays? I could get you another Darren Shan, but we're finished with Slaughter for the time being. If you missed the rest of that series, look, buy the entire series. It's good. I swear it is. I really enjoy Darren Shan. He's very easy to read. And I'll see you soon.